Alright, so we are going to be starting chapter 3, which talks about solving equations. But before we talk about solving equations, I want to talk about this key idea that we're going to use when we solve equations. So that key idea is an inverse, or should I say inverse operations. So the word inverse, right, I have it written over here, it means the opposite or to undo. Okay, so an inverse operation is operations that undo each other. And we actually talked about inverse operations when we talked about PEMDAS. So if I write PEMDAS over here, remember, multiplication and division were on the same level, and addition and subtraction were on the same level as well. If you remember why, okay, maybe think about it for a little bit. Alright, they are on the same level because they are inverses. So multiplication and division are inverse operations, all right? They undo each other. So, for example, if I have 15 divided by 3, I get 5. Now, what if I were to say I want to undo my dividing by 3? Well, to undo that, what I would do is I would just multiply by 3. And I'll get back the 15 I started with. Alright, so what if I had 7 times 2? I'd get 14. But what if I wanted to undo my multiplication of 2? Well, then I would divide by 2 and get back to my 7. Alright, so these operations, we use the same number with the operation, but we stick that other operation with that number and we start to undo things. Alright, so yes, multiplication and division are inverse operations. Okay, so that takes care of that MD level, but then the AS as well, addition and subtraction. So adding and subtracting are inverse operations. Alright, they undo each other. Again, let's look at some examples. If I have 18 minus 3, I get 15. Alright, but what if I all of a sudden decided I want to undo my subtraction of 3? Well, the inverse of subtraction, the opposite of subtraction, is addition. So I would add that 3 back on, and it would undo it, and I get back to my 18. Right, what if I did 1 plus 8? I would get 9. Okay, but what if I want to get back to that 1? What if I just want to undo my adding of 8? Well, then I would do the opposite of adding and use my 8 and subtract 8. And I'll get back to my 1. Alright, so this idea is going to come in handy when we are working with equations, because when we're working with equations, we're going to have two things that are set equal to each other. Alright, so now we're going to talk about what it means for things to be equal. So 5 equals 5, right? What if I decided I wanted to add 2 to this side? Well, 2 plus 5 is 7. So can I just say, well, 7 equals 5? No, I can't, right? 7 doesn't equal 5. So if I decide to add something to this side, I have to add it to this side as well. So now 7 equals 7, and that's true. So we're good to go. Alright, so this is another thing we need to talk about with before we get into solving equations, is that if you decide to do something, some operation to one side of the equal sign, right? When we look at sides, we go down the equal sign, we got our left side, we got our right side. If we add 2 to this side, well, to make sure that equal sign stands up, we add 2 to this side. So that means if I have 3 times 4 equals 3 times times 4, if I want to subtract 1 from this side, I want a minus 1 here now. That means I have to subtract 1 from this side. Okay, and then if we were to solve this, use the order of operations, 3 times 4, we do our multiplication first. So now we have 12 minus 1 on both sides, and we get 11 equals 11, which is true. All right, what if I had, trying to get this new program I'm using, so we'll see how this works. If I have 8 equals 8, and then I decide I want to divide by 4 on each side, divide by 4 on one side, I have to do this side too. So now I have 2 equals 2, and it stays true. All right, I can't do 8 divided by 4, excuse me, sorry. I can't do 8 equals 8 and then say, well, I'll divide by 4 on this side and not that side, because 2 does not equal 8. All right, so the two things that we talked about today. Okay, we talked about inverse operations. Okay, what are inverse operations? They undo, okay, undo each other. All right, so our inverse operations are addition and subtraction, and then multiplication and division. All right, so if we want to get rid of something we added, then we subtract it. If we want to get rid of something we multiplied, then we divide it. If we want to get something we subtracted, we add it. Get rid of something we divided, we multiply it. All right? This might seem a little weird at this point, but as we start solving equations, it will make a little bit more sense. All right, the other thing that we talked about was this idea of something being equal, equality, what it means to be equal. Okay, and that's the idea of if one thing equals one thing, we have to do the same thing to both sides to keep things equal. All right, so we have to treat both sides equal. So we treat both sides of the equal sign, we have a left side and right side, the same. Okay, we gotta treat the same. That way things stay equal. So if we add 2 to the left side of the equal sign, we add 2 to the right side. All right, so that's pretty much kind of the concepts I want to talk about here. If you did not take notes on that, you might want to rewatch it and take just a few notes. The homework will be a quick Desmos activity to kind of introduce you to solving equations, and then we'll talk more about equations tomorrow. So get ready and prepared.